Thank you, Melissa. Welcome, everyone here live and listening, who have a chance to listen to this on a recording. I'm Andrew Stetner. I'm the Vice President of the Autism Society of Maryland. I'm also a parent of a child on the autism spectrum who is with me here tonight. So hopefully in my role of moderator, one of my friends will back me up if things go haywire here at home. We are excited to have this annual meeting with Dr. Terri Savage and her team. As the Autism Society of Maryland has expanded our work to other parts of the state, and that's given me a chance to reflect on the great relationship we have here in Howard County with Dr. Savage and her team of open communication. We don't always agree. We always talk things out and hear each other out and share information to parents. So I'm really grateful for that relationship that we have, the Autism Society of Maryland has, and I have personally with Dr. Savage. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the arc of this evening's event. We're going to hear from Dr. Savage on a very important topic for us, an upcoming review of special education, planned review of special education. And then we're going to break into small groups. They'll be by age group. In the end, my understanding, Melissa, is we'll have one group for early education, one group for elementary, one combined group for middle and high school, and then a Spanish language group. Before we have a presentation, Terri, can you just briefly introduce yourself and your colleagues that are here tonight? This is really important, folks. I always say in these meetings, it's a chance for you to understand who is on the special education leadership team. They are for you when you have questions about what's happening in your school, but not every question needs to go to Dr. Savage. So Dr. Savage, please introduce your team.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Terri Savage, and I serve as the Executive Director of Special Education. My team and I are happy to join you this evening for the annual meeting. And I will ask Janice to introduce herself.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Janice Yetter and serve as your your Director of Special Education Services. And I'm glad to be here this evening with you. Jen, if you would like to go next.
I'm gonna mute. Hi, couldn't unmute. Good evening, I'm Jen Riccardi. I am the coordinator for early intervention services. So that includes infants and toddlers, as well as preschool and pre-K for children ages 3 and 4. And I'll pass it to Emily.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Kinsler. I'm the coordinator of countywide services, which encompasses related services, deaf and hard of hearing services, vision services, adapted physical education, child find, and audiology and in-depth. I'm happy to be here tonight.
Thanks so much, Terri. And the email addresses for all the staff here, you can find them right on the website, along with other key points of contact for you. One reason we chose tonight's topic, so much has changed for the special education population, since the pandemic. Challenges around mental health, growing numbers of special education students in our county, and what we've heard, from the Autism Society and DSE has heard from parents who are concerned about the progress that their children are making in school, the challenges they're having with academic progress, inclusion, discrimination, behaviors, fitting in. So these are all really big challenges that we've heard from parents. Magda, let me give you a chance to catch up. Oh, right, Magda's another channel, right? I'm sorry, I don't have to do that. So those are all challenges that we've heard, from parents. And there were several committees, kind of came to the same conclusion that it would be timely to really step back from the way we're addressing different students, different needs. We know that within autism, every student is different. And when we spread out to the whole special education community, there's a lot of diversity of needs. And we have a goal of inclusion, but we know that's difficult, to achieve. So that's why the Autism Society of Maryland, alongside our colleagues at SECAC, really advocated, for a special education review. We talked about it with the chief academic officer, who's now our interim superintendent, last fall and last winter, and it's advanced from that point. So that's how we get to today. And I'm going to turn it over to Terri, and I believe, Melissa, you will share the slides.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pause just in case Ann Schultz is there to introduce herself as part of our team.
I am. Thank you, Terri. I'm Ann Scholes. I'm with the Family Support and Resource Center. And in that role, I support families of students with IEPs and IFSPs. Terri, can we introduce Valerie real quickly?
Yes.
Valerie, do you want to unmute and just say hello?
Hi, my name is Valerie, and I am the new person at the Family Support and Resource Center, and I'm just learning from Anne, and I'm a Spanish speaker, so if any family needs some help in Spanish, I'm there to help.
All right. Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Valerie. So as the slides are coming up, I too want to thank the Autism Society of Maryland for your steady partnership over the years. We certainly appreciate all of the conversations, discussion, advocacy, you name it, you've been there, and we are so appreciative of that partnership. And to my SECAC partners on the line, same to you, and we're all delighted to have so many people out with us this evening and at all of our AUSOM and SECAC meetings. Before I go farther, I want you to meet one of our amazing students. At the beginning of the year, she did not know all of her letters and sounds. And now, thanks to one of our amazing special educators, also here with us this evening, I believe, Mrs. White. Her hard work and the support of her family, this young lady is reading and writing at this point. She is a true example of, and I quote, great collaboration between school and home to get her to this point. That was from her mom. Thank you to her mom for giving me permission to allow her smile to remind us of why we are all here for our children. Next slide, please. Every day, our amazing teachers and providers in our schools give the best they have to give to create things for our students. This colorful graphic made me think. Over the years, HCPSS has been touted as a great place to live and a great place to educate our children. And it would be irresponsible to not acknowledge that we all know we have good things to celebrate, and we surely have ongoing gaps to fill in. We here on this grid, the parents here and staff, have a responsibility to do all we can to stay on track of continuous improvement. Over time, with much input from parents and school system staff, we've acquired, implemented, and preserved many tools, a variety, like you see here in this graphic, that we have at our disposal. And like we experience in art, there are many different ways to design the most beautiful work. When things get dull, when things stop working, aren't as sharp, don't make the best impressions, stop making clear marks, or highlight things to build us up and out to make us better, then it's time to take stock of the tools that we're using every day. To meet our objective, the Department of Special Education is very much interested and eager to engage in a formal process with external partners to help with completing a review of our programs, our services, and other supports. And that commitment to that objective has never shifted. We want local, state, national, and community perspectives. So with that, I want to thank you for jumping right in to lend your hands, ideas, resources, and more to this creative collective. Together, I truly believe we will keep doing more than we could ever do if we're remaining on this journey alone. So why now? Next slide, please. Why are we as a Department of Special Education lifting up the need for a special education program review? Well, because it's the next step in what we have done, but on a much smaller scale in previous years. As an example, we've done observational reviews for academic life skills program and other programs with an external partner. The difference here in our next steps that we will take comes from several known reasons that we have had many conversations about over time. Regardless of the reason, what is important is to lift our needs and the solutions. We strive to take a look at our existing programs, services, supports, and this is critical because students' needs are continually shifting. Some students we already serve have new needs, and some students who have never had needs for special education do now. And these needs require staffing supports and a variety of them. What works for one, we know, does not work for all. So this review will help us look at how we allocate staffing and what ongoing training would be beneficial for not only new staff, but veteran staff too. Why now? Because workload demands have increased significantly for our teachers and our providers. We see the impact on teaching from increased administrative, or what we refer to as other case management duties, and we keep finding ourselves in need of doing more with the same, and in some instances of our work, less. So we view this as an opportunity to look at how to best use the dollars at our disposal to serve all our learners, birth to 21. While reviews have been discussed for some time now, and even done on a small scale, the resources to get it done on a larger scale and platform have just now become a possibility. What do I mean? As the department leader, I recommended we grow our interest in securing an external partner to do this type of in-depth review, and that costs money. Thanks to the board member Mosley and her board colleagues, not only have they moved this effort forward for us, but we now have funding included in their board approved budget to cover this program review once approved. $100,000 has been included in the FY25 budget for us to go in search of a vendor who will oversee and implement a programmatic review for special education. And this is a celebration for my team and I, because it is something that we have been in discussion about for quite some time. So we appreciate your advocacy and getting behind that as well, because without you, we may not have realized the point at which we are today, having the actual resources identified so that we can complete this work. Once the board, on the next slide, Once the board adopts a final FY25 budget, we will be in position to request proposals from vendors who specialize in this work. Now, remember, the board must vote to approve a contract for the identified vendor that a committee of staff takes forward. The superintendent, Mr. Bill Barnes, along with our leadership team, will expect a comprehensive review that includes not only comparisons where appropriate, but also recommendations and other considerations that will help the system prioritize special education budgeting, allocating resources, implementing services, designating supports, and much, much more. We all desire this external support to help with the school and office improvement planning that is actually underway and being guided at this present time by our acting superintendent, Mr. Barnes. In the future, there will be structures for further engaging stakeholders to provide additional input in addressing components of the recommendations that we expect as well. For one, I see future work groups, committees, and focus groups that include different voices, meaning yours, to dig deeper into the recommendations. So we share the responsibility of building and implementing things together. Administrators have even been sharing needs in the past few months that they see through their lens. And this type of feedback will continue to be collected. Steps we take following the review will ultimately be guided by our permanent superintendent. But these are examples of how the work can be shared and successfully played out along the way. Here, I share some of the areas of focus that I have determined necessary for some time, like staffing, available services, and professional learning, to rattle off just a few of these. And this list also includes areas that represent concerns and interests lifted already by parent and community stakeholders, like resources for students who are twice exceptional, and more programs and services for some. And more programs and services. For some, they desire more to be done around meaningful inclusion for their child. And so this represents a list of things that we believe are important and necessary at this point in time. And we will continue to gather ideas from you as stakeholders. Let's look at the anticipated timeline. We set this timeline some time ago, and we are on track up to this point. As you see here, March through this month, May, we're continuing to communicate the purpose with stakeholder groups, internal offices, my own department. We have completed all of those updates. Tonight is our final stop in terms of communicating with you until we give even more information or a repeat of this information at the upcoming SECAC general meeting. We will be requesting information from potential vendors, and that will help us write the request for proposal. In other words, HCPSS has to invite potential vendors to submit basically applications to do this type of work. In that request for proposal, that is where HCPSS talks about the type of work that we want the vendor to do, meaning looking at our programs, looking at our staffing models, comparing how we do things to other districts in Maryland and outside of Maryland, looking at what's working well, looking at what's not working well, and also offering recommendations in addition to a whole host of other things. May to June, we plan to develop and issue the request for proposal, which I just talked about. In that time period, then we will be planning to begin to engage in a process with our vendor from summer to fall. But remember, a committee selects the vendor. That recommendation goes before our Board of Education. They, at that time, will make decisions about whether or not to approve that vendor or not. At that time, we will begin to engage the vendor in whatever process they would guide us through. We won't make those decisions. We leave it to the vendor to walk us through the process that they are the experts in. And during that time, we will also be discussing the timing for the next steps with stakeholder groups that we intend on forming to be ready and in place to go through any of the recommendations, priorities that may be underway at the time in our department, as well as initiatives that are then permanent superintendent, if we are at that point, would have us to focus on. So I will take questions about the program review when we get to the end of our presentation. We do have a few more slides for you this evening because we were asked to talk a little bit about compensatory services and share a couple of reminders. Janice?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. On the next slide, just a few reminders about our compensatory education and recovery services. Many students are receiving or have completed their services up until this point. We actually began this journey way back in about November of 2021 when we were first bringing out the information to families. And we've come a long way since that time. Our families should have received a letter this March with important details that outlines their remaining hours that are left that were awarded to them during that time, beginning back in November of 2021. The timeline for completion was provided for you for compensatory services and in that letter, and is based on the number of hours that you have remaining if you were a family with a student that was awarded those compensatory service hours. Next slide. So depending upon the number of service hours remaining that you should have received in that letter, if you have or your student has 300 hours or less remaining, you still have until June 30th, 2025 for those service hours to be completed. So just a little over a year for those to be completed. If a family or a student has 301 to 999 hours, you would have until June 30th, 2026. So a little over 2 years for those service hours to be completed. And if you have a student with more than 1,000 hours remaining of those that were awarded, you would have until June 30th of 2027 for those hours to be completed. Next slide. So if for some reason you have questions remaining about your compensatory education recovery services and specific to your situation, we'll certainly answer those questions or take down some of your information in the breakout rooms. We certainly want to hear about those, and we'll be sure that we follow up with those questions at another time. But we also want to remind you that Ms. Scholes and the families and Valerie are here from the Family Support and Resource Center, and that they also have important information that comes from our office for you of many opportunities, educational opportunities, social opportunities for you and your children. There are upcoming workshops and community resources. And we also want to make sure everyone knows that right now, the MSDE parent survey is out. Hopefully everyone received it by mail or maybe even email. And it should be completed. We ask that you complete it by May 24th, 2024. If for some reason you did not get it, that's okay. You can go directly to this website that is here on the screen. www.ndparentsurvey.com, and you can go right in there and complete the survey. We really value this information. The state reviews the information and gives us feedback on the results, but we also take the feedback and really do consider everything that is there and make adjustments to our practices based on that feedback. And the Maryland survey card and some other initiatives are that parent survey card for more immediate feedback is an example of another way that we have worked to use the information and use your feedback. And
Hey,
there we go.
thank you everybody for your attention and for coming out with us this evening. I believe that we have time.
Yeah, we
Andy,
have
for
about
questions.
8 or 9 minutes for questions.
Sure.
Let me just use my moderator's prerogative to ask one quick follow-up question to Janice. If the people on, this group tonight are, I would say, leaders, they talk to other parents. So if they know a parent and said, oh, I think I saw that letter about compensatory, but I didn't answer it, I don't know who to contact. Are you the best person for another parent to contact if they're worried that they didn't do what they need to do on compensatory services?
So Dr. Savage put in the chat box, Miss Patricia Gunshore is the best person to reach out to directly, and she would be able to pull up the letter that was sent and describe what was in it if for some reason the family misplaced or did not have their letter handy.
Right, and then and so I think you do want to hear from people. You don't want to not hear from people.
Absolutely.
So I think that's important. I know I know some parents had challenges filling out the form. Some of our Spanish speakers. So I know you're able to help those parents who have them. So yeah, I think we'll stop for some questions, and particularly questions about the review and what parents here tonight saw as questions they had about it, things they think are important to address. This won't be the only chance that we'll have, as Dr. Savage said. And Autism Society and SECAC, we've been asked to come also to do some of our homework to think about this topic. But so that we're partly doing our homework tonight as we're hearing you answer questions. So I think we can use the raise hand function in the webinar. I hope I'll see people's hands as they come up. The floor is open for any questions. I'm confident this is not the shyest group in the world that someone will have a question or comment about this topic. All right, Jeannie, thanks for breaking the ice.
Always happy to do that. This actually isn't my question. I'm asking it on behalf of Kelsey Oplanik, but I agree with the question. She wanted to know if there was any weight in the RFP process given to review companies that have representation on their staff of neurodivergent people or people with disabilities. I think it could be an important voice.
Sure. So thank you for that question. And also part of our purpose here is to listen and learn about the things that are important for our stakeholders to have us include in our proposal, meaning the scope of work. So we have the opportunity to list out things that we expect the vendor to do, but we also have the responsibility of sharing what type of vendor we're looking for. In other words, I said we definitely want to have a vendor that has a team, at least that includes people who have expertise in the area of special education or a related field. And so Dr. Liao-Sakos and Ms. Zoplanik, we do have that opportunity to be able to indicate our preference for that. I don't know that we, would be able to exclude based on that factor, but we certainly can solicit participation of vendors who with particular strengths and needs.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Nichelle, were you raising your hand there? I thought it went down, but I thought I saw you wave or raise your hand. Is that right? Could have been an errant hand.
Andy,
Okay.
we have one in the chat
Okay.
unrelated to the study,
yeah.
but with the proposed budget containing a 50% reduction in TEs, how does the department intend to ensure the needs of students requiring CAS are met?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure Dr. Savage can answer that question.
Yes, I can answer that question. So if you have been following the FY25 proposed budget and then the budget that was subsequently adopted by the our Board of Education and moved on to the County Council, you certainly have noticed that we previously had funding to staff quite a number of what we call temporary employees. These temporary employees are a non-benefited role in our county. In other words, they're non-HCPSS personnel that we actually secure through an agency that we have a similar contract to, as we've been talking about contracts this evening. With the reductions in our current proposed budget, it would reduce our temporary employee resources by 50% of the number that we are currently staffed. Let me say it in a simpler way. We currently have about 138 temporary employees. I might be off by one or two. The proposed budget will reduce that. It will take it to half of that. So we are looking at only about 70 temporary employees that we would be able to place in our schools. Now, how will we address close adult supervision is the question. A child's IEP indicates adult support. In Howard County, we talk about that in terms of close adult supervision. Historically, Howard County has used this temporary employee pool of people to supplement the staffing already given to the schools, meaning the special educators, the permanent paraeducators in special education, and the permanent student assistant role in Howard County Public Schools. So it's been great for us to have those additional resources to be able to allocate. We're going to have a reduced number. And so we are going to have to look at how we make the decisions for when a school needs to serve a child who may require even greater levels of adult support. The temporary employee role is not one like in some other school districts where the child is one-to-one with the adult all the time, where they need that individualized, that level of individualized support. So in our county, we have used that TE role to add additional hands, if you will, on the team, and expand the team's bandwidth to be able to create a schedule so that children can have the level of adult support that they need. So we're hopeful that our team leaders, as they're doing their schedules, are engaging the Department of Special Education to help them with their schedules. That's work that we normally do all year long. Because even when we allocate staffing, we might have, 4 or 5 additional students that move in, and we have to go back and redo schedules to make sure that every child that does have adult support on their IEP is able to get that support from somebody on the existing staff. And when that's not possible, that is the time at which we allocate this temporary employee role. Let me say one more thing about that. There are times when we've made allocations for the TE role, and there are no TEs to be hired from the agency. And that means we have to problem solve with that school team how we're going to provide that child the adult support they need. And it's not always easy to do, but we have an obligation to do it. And so we have been able to engage some of our other types of vendors to provide us with different types of supports as well. So for example, we've had to engage some of our vendors to go in search of additional para support staffing. And so we'll be continuing the same thing that we always do. It's just we'll need to do it even more.
Thank you for that, Terri. We're going to jump into our small groups in just a minute. If you have other questions, you can ask them of anyone in your small group. The small groups are also a chance for you to ask questions about anything that you have experienced that's related to policy in your school. I remember I first met Terri at a meeting like this in person. Questions about early childhood when she was a lot younger, and it was really helpful. So this is a great chance for you. Before we go to groups, I'm just going to say a couple of things about the Autism Society of Maryland and our work on education and our organization. First and foremost, Autism Society is a place for community, for inclusion, for our families, adults and our kids on the autism spectrum. We have lots of fun events. Our next one is our cornhole event on May 18th that everyone can come out and throw some bags and have fun doing that. But we also do a lot of advocacy. I'm going to put my email in the chat. You're welcome. I welcome you to join our education committee. There are several members I'm very grateful for on the call tonight that have helped organize this event. Jeannie and Michelle, and I believe Pam, and a few other members that are here tonight, Jamara, a number of members from our committee that really do a lot of work on education advocacy, things like testifying at the Board of Education meetings. We also just published some answers to a dozen questions. We asked each of the 12 people who are running for Board of Education to answer. So that's on on our website. Today was the first day to vote. So I encourage you to vote either through early voting through May 9th or on the main election day on May 14th. So definitely encourage you to get involved at every level. Coming out tonight is a great way to get involved. I encourage you to follow up and get involved more in education advocacy. Oh, thank you, Raj. Now let's go back. Thank you for everyone for participating in the breakout groups. I was able to visit a few. I heard some great conversation about individual situations and some great conversations about the future of special education. Please, if you had additional questions, additional thoughts about the special education review or any issue that was brought up tonight, please do send an email to either me or Melissa. we'll incorporate those into our Autism Society's priority development as part of this process with the Division of Special Education. Thanks again to the committee, our translators, all the Board of Ed staff that stayed late in the evening to be with us tonight. You can hear that my daughter is getting a little bit tired. So I do want to, I'll just close by thanking everyone for being here. Melissa, any other closing words that you have?
No, thank you. And a special thank you to the Howard County special education team. And we really appreciate you being here and being so open and willing to answer questions and meet with our parents. It's a really important process for many years since I've been here for sure. But thank you. And I think that's it. We'll be posting, we'll be sharing the slides that the team had and the recording as well in just a few days. So thank you all. Have a great evening.
We'll be happy to take comments from autism and non-autism families. Thanks again, everyone. Thanks everyone for being here. We really appreciate it.